This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
You know, when you think of our animals, especially our dogs, you might not think that this is something that plays a role in their behavior, but it really does. I'm talking about fear and anxiety. A lot of times we think that translates to humans, although I would bet you that there's a lot of fear and anxiety for us humans of dogs along the way there. We're going to talk about that today. Fear and anxiety for your dog and for the human that goes along with that dog. She is the owner of the Animal Psychology Center in South Dakota. Always has so much insight. Every time we get together, I've learned so much from her, even for my own dog, and have had some really great outcomes that way too. Katherine Andrews is back with us. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Steve, for your kind words, first of all. And yeah, doing very well. Thank you. We have influenza and strep throat going around here, but I've managed to avoid it. I'm pretty happy about that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about fear and anxiety today, and wanted to say that it manifests in different ways, not only with people, but with dogs, depending on, personality and what drives you. But I had a golden doodle that came to me with a lady who was totally perplexed about what was going on with her dog, because her dog was, every time they went outside, the dog would just aggressively bark at anybody or anything. And no one could pet the dog. No one could come near the dog. And of course, like all of these behavioral problems, they get worse if they're not addressed, and they get worse in a hurry sometimes. So she brought the dog to me, and, she just got out of the vehicle. The dog was wanting to bite me and wanting to go after me. And I mean, really barking at me like, I'm going to get you. You better, And it's funny because it's such a dichotomy, because it's about a 40-pound golden doodle, which is cute and fluffy. So anyway, what we did was went into the training room, and I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I use a collar. I use a number of different versions of the prong collar, and people who say that collar is anything but homeopathic don't understand that collar, because that collar is meant to press on the acupressure points under the neck and get in touch with the biological program of communication within the dog. So that was a big mouthful right there. Does that make sense? Your dog, just like we do, has biological programs, and there are acupressure points to get in touch with those. And for the dog, communication right here is done with mom and littermates with teeth. So mom will bring her and put her teeth on the puppy and use those points to communicate, as well as eye contact. So the first thing I do when a dog is fearful like that is get out my box collars and get a collar on him. I can't get near the dog and put it on, so I coach the person to put it on. And the collar has these little nubs in it that press on those points. So as soon as you put that collar on, because it's connected to that program says, communicate with me, relax, breathe, and I'm the leader and you're not. So as soon as you put that collar on, all that information starts flooding the dog's brain, and they get a whole new sense of what is going on with them in the world.
I'm blown away. I had no idea. You mentioned that collar before, Katherine. I didn't know that it addresses acupressure points on the dog. So that makes perfect sense.
It's huge.
When would you use? People tell me about using a harness, and I wrote it down here. I don't know if I got the name of it right, but let me see.
You don't even want to know what I mean. I mean, harnesses. Yeah.
Front clip harness. I don't know if that means anything.
Fine. Prong colors. Yeah. What did you say? What a harness means?
They call it a front clip harness. I've heard some people use that, and that's, you should use that instead of just a traditional collar and leash. Is that true or no?
Well, It's not going to work. The only thing that really works for communication and for your dog to be in communication with you, and especially if your dog is going to be a service dog and work, but even just going for a walk, you have to have that communication because sometimes you're going to encounter, you know, a street that you have to cross, so you're going to have to rein your dog in because of another dog or something going on. So you've got to have at the end of that leash communication. Um, and that collar is the only thing that I know of that's going to get you that. Harnesses were invented so you can latch onto them and have a dog pull a cart or a sled. So as soon as you put a harness on and you do this across their chest, their biological program says pull, which is why you see people going down the street like, and that dog is pulling their shoulder out of the socket. The,
Mm.
the leash across the chest, it's a little bit better. At least it kind of gets in touch with that program a little bit, but it's still doing the same thing the harness is doing. It's putting pressure here, which says pull. So the only way you're going to get the results I'm talking about is with a prong collar. And people who are going to use one really need to get in touch with a professional so you can figure out which one works for your dog, because there's different prong collars for um, big dogs, little dogs, dogs with a heavier hair coat, or so you have to get the one that works right for you. But
Mm.
I'm yammering on about this today because it's super important. It is the basis for what I did with this dog. And the reason that this dog is now totally different is partially due to that collar.
Wow. All right. Did I
Yeah.
hear you clearly that that collar isn't available anymore?
It's available. I mean, if people want to know about them, I can just, folks, you're always welcome to email or get me through the website, and I'll answer your questions. Anybody who writes to me about what kind of collar you need and discuss it with you for free. But Amazon sells them.
Gotcha.
Um, Most pet stores don't because they want to sell you that darn harness. They make more money selling you that harness, but it is not. The
Mm.
only thing it's useful for is you want your dog to walk out in front of you at some point, you let them free on the leash. It's good for that. Or if you want to be pulled in a cart. Those are the two things that a harness is good for. That's it. But as far
Mm.
as walking, it's the Antichrist. All that dog is thinking of is pull. And when that dog's out in front of you and pulling, there's no communication here. So anything that he encounters, there's no thought to you and what you might want him to do, or you know what I
Wow.
mean? There's no communication.
And
So
I would
that's why
imagine
dogs at the end of the leash act out.
that would be
Yeah.
you're breaking cardinal dog training rule number one of letting the dog go ahead of you. You're leading the dog, not the other way around, right?
Right, right, exactly. So when you begin, leave the house with the dog, you want to be in what I call training mode, which is using the collar and leash and having that dog right beside you, not ahead of you, right beside you, and actually a little bit behind you. There's a spot I call a sweet spot, which is when you move your leg to the side, your calf should hit the dog in the chest. So the dog is not equal with you, they're just a little bit behind you. And you'll notice when you put your dog in that sweet spot, there's instant communication. Like that dog will look up at you and make eye contact, and you'll feel all of a sudden the connection. And I do this with my clients all the time, and they're like, this is magic. I'm like, it is, but it's pretty simple. You're just plugging into that biological program that's right here. And that
Mm.
is why it works
So
like
tell
magic. It really does.
tell us about fear and
Go
anxiety.
ahead.
What else should we know when it comes to our dogs?
Well, so this little guy who was so aggressive and fearful, um, got the collar on him, got the collar working. Um, when you start out, there's what I call objections. They're gonna throw themselves down and holler and stuff because it's like anything new, they don't want to do it. You would just ignore the behavior. And then by the end of that first session, he was walking on the collar. He was walking with me. He was happy. His tail was up. He was like, hey, this is fun. Like, I'd rather have you guys as friends than be this aggressive guy that wants to bite everybody. So he had those realizations, and we were able to clear some neural pathways. That's what that's called. So anyway, we've had a few sessions since then, and she's able to walk him in the neighborhood, and um, he's able to see other dogs and people and be like a normal dog, like be friendly, right? So I said to her, we were supposed to have a session on Saturday, and we had like a snowstorm and the roads were really slick. So we had to meet Sunday. I said, well, the stock show's in town. Let's go down to the stock show. And because I had another client that I had to see that same Sunday. So I thought I'll just double everybody up and we'll go to the stock show and we'll do the things we need to do with the dogs because it'll be great. We'll have plenty of um, material because we're going to have other animals and lots of people, and so it'll be challenging for the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So the lady that had the golden doodle, of course, was super nervous because she's like, oh my God, we've never been around this many dogs, and she's never seen a cow and all that stuff. And I said, well, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And long story short, we met out in the parking lot and kind of got into training mode in a quiet space. And then when we went in there, I'm not kidding, Steve, that little dog, her name's Maggie, she did so well. And people were able to pet her. She was happy. She made friends with an Australian cow dog when we went to the cow barn. And, her owner had the same anxiety and fearfulness. So the two of them were just feeding each other the whole time. And what Susan was doing was, as soon as, and we've talked about this, as soon as Maggie would do that aggressive stuff, she would hover over her and do that helicopter parent thing and be like, it's okay, which in dog language, remember, is saying, do more of that. So growl, bark, and bite people. And so she was given the wrong information, Maggie was. So getting Susan to relax was a big part of this. I always tell my clients, breathe. That's a big one. To hold the breath. If you're at the end of that leash and sending anxiety to Maggie, it's going to be harder for her to relax. So it was like a dichotomy, the two of them getting, one to relax and then the other to relax. And yeah, Maggie walked with me, and I had another client there that had a Belgian Malinois that we did the service dog test, and she passed. But I even had them trade dogs. And when I said that to Susan, I called it out. I said, okay, now trade dogs, because they were walking in the parking lot. And she looked at me and I said, don't think about it, just do it. And she did. And it was great.
Wow.
It was, yeah.
Those dogs can have a lot of anxiety, can't they? That breed.
Yeah, doodles are more sensitive, which means that they're more prone to fear. They don't make good protection dogs because they're more likely to hide under the couch if somebody comes in that's threatening. And that's again just part of their nature. The upside of that is they're just so sweet, and they're very good natured, and they're very friendly. Whereas, like my dog, Hera, she's a Cane Corso. She is friendly though, because she's been so socialized. But if someone approaches me that has questionable energy, she looks at them and the whole friendly thing stops. Not that she would bite them, but her whole demeanor changes. And that person hears it every time they back up and leave, or sometimes they don't even say anything, but she makes them uncomfortable. And it's usually a man who's wanting to talk to me and be flirtatious or something, and then she intervenes, which is like, thank you.
Isn't it amazing that they pick up on that stuff? They pick up on the energy, the vibration, the body language.
Yeah.
I think we take it for
Yeah.
granted that they're processing things nonstop. Even my cat will just sit up and look at me.
Always.
And I know he's reading
Yeah.
me. He's picking up on me.
Yeah.
He's figuring me out. Funny how they do that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Because cats like to get on you and balance your energy, and that's what they do. They balance your energy. So they're like little medicine men, that are always sort of watching you and healing you, and it's really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What else
I
can you
love
tell
my
us about
cats.
fear? As I understand it, we're programmed for fear. to keep ourselves safe. We always want to be safe as humans. That's it. The fear comes in because that's why we're still here. We want to be safe. Dogs, is it the same thing through
Right.
evolution?
I think all mammals are the same. We're hot wired to that, to be cautious of a new situation, or certainly to be cautious of energy that's not welcoming. And animals are much better at it than humans are. Humans will fall for a pretty face, or, you know, whatever you're wearing, or a fancy car or something. Dogs never fall for any of that, nor do elephants or giraffes. So humans are a bit different. I always say humans are harder to send in the positive direction because they're attached to the story. They're attached to why they have the PTSD, or who else is to blame. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and that I don't feel that way too about things in my past that have hurt me, but um it's just, dogs have this wonderful sense of well-being that they don't think about that stuff. And it's probably a blessing, honestly. Sometimes I wish we as humans didn't um, have that
Hmm.
capacity to rehash things in our mind all the time. Dogs never do that.
When we talk about anxiety, it's a big thing for dogs and humans too. Everybody has anxiety. I got to believe every dog has anxiety. It's all at different levels. If your dog is more anxious than they should be, what are some of the things that we can do to make them feel better, calm them down? And I'm not talking about those special situations, July 4th with fireworks, things like that. I'm just talking in an
Right.
average day.
Well, we started off talking about that collar. That collar definitely helps. It gets right into the program that says relax and breathe. It's part of that program. So what's better than that? Putting on something that reminds your brain constantly to relax and breathe. It also constantly tells you to partner, to uh, leadership. Whoever's at the end of that leash is your leader. So you'll see a dog, even a dog that's used to being out in front, when you have them on that leash, they're constantly turning to me and making eye contact. Like, what's next? What are we doing here? So it's just a natural thing. So if you've got all those things going for you with that collar, man, why would you want to skip that first step? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm. Okay.
Other than that, here's something I can tell you. Even if you've got a regular collar on your dog, when they react negatively, don't coddle them and don't pet them obsessively. All you
Mm.
need to do is just lower your voice and say, "Hey, it's going to be fine." And you can move away from the situation and let them relax. And then you can go back into the situation again, or not. But you always want to react with calm, confidence, and kindness. Those are the three things that will shut the brain down from, not shut it down, but stop the fear and anxiety.
That's a great point. So many times when your dog has anxiety, what do we do? Well, that's okay, boy. It's all right. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. What are you saying? They're hearing, oh, it's okay when I do this. Let me do it again in the future.
Or
It's all right.
yeah, do more of it. Yeah, keep going and do more of it, which is why when Susan brought Maggie to me, and she was petting her and telling her it's okay, Maggie got more and more amped up and wanted to bite me more and more. And it's like stating the obvious, but you have to be gentle how you talk to people because you don't want to offend them. But like, isn't it obvious to you the more you do it, the worse she gets? But I don't say these things, I'll just say, let's consider this, that
Mm.
what you're doing is making her more nervous. And let's try doing it a different way, which is to um, be the leader, Hey, it's okay.
So this
You're gonna be
became
fine. So,
popular many years ago and still is, and that is Prozac for dogs. Anxiety, all of that.
yeah.
So,
Mm.
is there a place for it, or are you somebody that says resolve it in another way?
You know, I don't have any prejudices with medicine or homeopathic. I use all of it, but I'll tell you, I've never one time in my career seen that. Sometimes it can be a little band-aid to get from here to there, but I've never seen it work long term. And
Wow.
probably about 80% of the time, it doesn't even work as a band-aid. So you're seeing less and less vets that are doing that now. But, there are some veterinary clinics that are money oriented and they're going to throw everything at you they can. And, their idea is going to be just to stay on that and to not do the work, which I'm never going to agree with.
So I want to make sure I heard this clear. You feel, tell me if this is not right, you
Okay.
feel that there's a place for that type of med on a case by case situation. So let's go back.
Yes.
July 4th
Yep.
coming up. Your dog freaks out.
Right.
You could put him in the straitjacket looking thingy, the thunder jacket.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
You could do that, and there's
Yeah.
maybe some other things anticipating that day with the noise and everything, and that's a one-off. It sounds like in those situations maybe that's okay, but as a long-term solution to anxiety, it sounds like you're feeling that not the best way to go.
No, and you're exactly right. Using it for days like 4th of July or when you're going to have 30 people over for Christmas or something,
Yep, yep.
that's okay. But if your dog is having anxiety day in and day out, you got to do something to change the brain, because the brain is not happy, and you want your dog to be happy.
Sure.
So if you're if you're going to just stay on Prozac, that doesn't fix the problem. The problem is still there. You're just masking it. And what'll happen is the brain will find more targets anyway. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
it'll go over here and do the same thing. So yeah, it just doesn't work for that.
Well, it's the
Gotta
same
do.
thing with humans. And when we go to a doctor, we have 11 minutes with that doctor. That's the average right now, including hello and goodbye. And
Mm,
in that time, they're not getting your full history. They're hearing you have
yeah.
anxiety. All right, let me write you a script. That'll take care of the symptoms. They didn't go to the root cause. Kind of sounds the same way. What we're saying here, even when it comes to the dog. All right, we have symptoms of July 4th, people coming over. But that's not the real cause of the anxiety. Sometimes you got to go a little bit deeper. It's not, takes
Yeah.
work.
And how do you know? It's because your dog is always at some level of nervousness or anxiety most of the time. That's when
Exactly.
you know you got to do something different. And
Mm.
that's
Um,
your,
we're out of time. That collar. What's that collar called?
it's called a prong collar. And if you have questions about what kind to get, just shoot me an email and I'll tell you
Yeah,
what I recommend.
I just wrote it down. Instant feedback, Steve at gmail.com. One way to reach us if you have a comment, question, anything that's on your mind about your dog. And if somebody wants to reach out directly or get some advice or guidance, you can do things virtually too. How do we connect with you?
Animalpsychologycenter.com.
Thank you for today. Always learn a lot from you. And
You're so welcome.
the harness thing, I was like ready to go buy one. I ain't buying it now.
I'm so glad. See, they make the highest profit margin from harnesses because, they're big and they're more substantial. So that's why you go in there and there's just harnesses everywhere. It's not because they work for,
Mm.
no.
But everything you said, I didn't even think about, but it makes total sense.
Doesn't
That,
make sense though. Yeah.
yeah. Love what you do. Love you, Katherine. Thanks for being here today.
Love you too, Steve. Take care.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.